Hello, world. Welcome to the Weirdness. My name's Brian Target, and I'm here with my best friend co-host Rob Biddle.
Hey.
And basically, this is the first episode of our podcast, The Weirdness, and it comes out of a concept of basically two dudes just sitting around talking about how the world goes round.
Yeah,
I mean, the weirdness is about that.
Yeah, we've been having these conversations, just weird conversations, like on a, it used to be on like almost on like an everyday basis. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much any time that we hang out, there's some kind of conversation that's somewhat intriguing and weird and mysterious and curious about it, so
yeah, I mean, I feel like some of it comes from facts and some of it just comes from like things that I'm like wondering about, thinking about in the moment, like what consciousness is. Like that's like another big thing that I've been kind of like thinking about a lot, and we've had a few conversations already about it.
Yeah,
we should definitely talk about like what do you think, if you had to like sum it up, what do you think like consciousness is?
I mean, that's such a broad topic because I believe, like, when you think about it, anything that we really do every single day involves that in some, like, in every aspect.
Yeah.
Because if we're not there, if we're not kind of aware, like, it's almost like it goes to awareness, being aware. Like, is being aware directly related to consciousness? I'm not sure. But I feel like it's, in that aspect, I feel like it somewhat is. Like, everyday life, we're just here. We're just conscious. We're aware that we're doing things, and we're, and sometimes on like almost like an autopilot level or something. But we're
and I feel like
think.
There's been times in my life where I've been on autopilot a lot.
Yeah.
You've ever like thought back and been like wow, for like a whole week I was just going with emotions. Like I was just getting up, going to work, coming home, just like totally just out of it, like almost in a highway of just, you don't even realize what the last day you had was. Almost it's just like auditory. It's just it's just always just going.
And that moment that you kind of look back and just realize, wow, like I was kind of, I wasn't as aware. Or wasn't
it's almost in a micro way, kind of like when you have you ever been driving on a highway and been like, whoa, I'm driving right now.
Yeah,
like,
and you're
wow.
Kind of either get lost in the music, or if you have something playing on.
Yeah, and it's radio. Like, how long have I been zoned out for?
Yeah, and it's weird because like you're still like it's like as you think operating a vehicle is it's somewhat simple, but it also it has to be somewhat complex to be able to kind of steer and press on the gas and kind of look around and stuff. So it's kind of,
I almost like, in a weird way, like, what about if like in our lives it works, like you start off driving a car 17, 18, and I feel like I didn't start getting those until like, because like really it's like how long you drive for, years after years after years, and it's just becomes kind of this repertory thing. Like I've like thinking like, wow, did I like just like, I noticed that I didn't even check if the light was green.
Yeah.
Because it's like you see it and it's like it's just this like, this is like an autopilot.
Automation
it's just like you see,
kind of thing.
and you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So like the daily things that we do in our life where it's like constant, it's the same.
Yeah.
Can you zone out technically and go to a different part of your brain while your body is doing that?
It's like almost the process of repetition and the multiple times of that repetition in the past. Do you like does the act of like repeating something in large amounts, like you said, kind of like what else can you really do with when you're like cruising on the highway, just sitting there? And then you zone out, you realize, you kind of lose track of time. But also that's kind of like in the same, because that's the most repetitive aspect of driving a car, because
I feel
you've done just...
it's almost in a weird way a science, because I think of it this, like I've worked with health inspectors and different types of inspectors before, and they'll rotate those guys like every 3-4 years, because like they're going into the same buildings or inspecting the same equipment at the same place, like year after year after year after year. Can they like, it's the science of like, okay, now we gotta switch people around, so they change their so things just kind of blend in.
It's like almost like your interest capacity runs out or something, and something becomes so repetitive and so
your brain kind of just tunes it out.
It's almost like the more acts of repetition, the less conscious and aware you are. So it's like it almost plays hand in hand. It's like it's the act of being involved in something new, even if it's something as little as driving down a street you've never drove down before. That you're a little bit more aware than you would. Even though you're kind of doing the same act, it's just a different. Act. It's just the environment almost plays the same role. That is a weird concept. I mean, I wonder if there's any kind of studies done where someone kind of like tried to measure some kind of act of repetition and how that affects someone's ability. Like at what point does someone's consciousness and awareness kind of dither down after a certain repeated task, like their interest.
Yeah. It's almost like I think like consciousness and perception comes into play a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how do we know, like, just the way like we perceive things, like just because we've all like I perceive things differently than you, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think that your life experience kind of gets to that, like the way you experience something or the way you perceive something.
Yeah.
But like more of just in a weird way, like is the grass really green? Like, or is that just the way we're programmed to see
personally programmed to perceive it? Yeah.
Yeah. And like how the difference of like my green is not the exact same shade as your green.
Yeah.
How if you took like able to step outside of your body, because I mean even cameras and stuff are designed like our human eye to see.
Yeah. So like
so if you were able to step out as an outside of your body and actually see, does the world around us really look and feel the way we do? Because what we're equipped with 6 senses.
Yeah.
How many senses? I mean, I feel like it's a basic human, like we're the top of the food chain here on Earth. Like, okay, like maybe we're not equipped with every possible sense we need. I mean, there's infrared, there's radio,
all these, a lot of
frequencies and Wi-Fi and all that stuff like that we can't see. We can't see the air around us. Like,
I mean,
how do we know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense because I mean, colors too are frequencies.
Yeah, it's almost like if you really think about it in this way. Like I like to think about this a lot. Like they say, imagine if you were born without a nose.
Yeah.
Then you would wouldn't know what smell is.
Yeah. Because
you're not equipped with the tool.
Yeah.
To perceive it or to process it.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of weird because was something that kind of changed my perception, my own consciousness as a child, like kind of what we were talking about, how each one of us has some kind of different experience in how we interface with the world, thus giving us a different perception on everything, and that's, I guess, on more of a learning level, but but there's more, there's that the other spectrum to that of things that we can't help, like how do I, if I was in your body, or like you said, if we were to kind of look back, what would be that thing that kind of, is it the same? Do we all see the same, or we kind of perceive it the same? But anyway, what I was trying to say was, back then, like what you said, if we didn't have a nose, how would we even know what a smell was? How would we even know what to even kind of fathom about that? But I remember I don't know if it was 3rd grade or it was sometime around like elementary school, and I remember there was someone who came in class. It was I think it was a blind guy. He was kind of he did like I think it was like we were involving our teachings around, I think, the senses, believe it or not, and that was, I think, it was the general grade. It was like an auditorium kind of thing, auditorium kind of aspect, and everyone was there listening to this blind man, talk about how he learned, how his education, because I guess the school was kind of wrapping that up, and how, we're all different, and how something like, someone who, I think he was a very successful person, but anyway, someone asked him, what is it like to be blind? And he answered, I think it was a real short and simple, answer. And he was like, well, can you see through your knee? And she said, and I think she said, no. And he was like, and then he was like, that's what it's like. And it's like, when you think about it, like, that is chilling, it is chilling in a way. Or it's just like, wow, like when you think about it, like how, if you would even fathom, like if you had some kind of visual aspect or kind of other visual source, like how do you even perceive that?
Yeah, if you were, I don't know if this guy was born that way or if he came that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But imagine being born blind. But then learning How do you teach someone that's blind what sight is?
Yeah, I guess it's
like how
it's just irrelevant.
It seems like something. The way that person would perceive the world, and I'm sure there's people out there that have.
Yeah.
How do you describe, any what something looks like?
Yeah.
That's in a strange way, looping back to like conscious, like what is out there. What about if we were all born without something like eyes?
Yeah.
And we all don't know it.
Yeah.
What's out there that we can't feel.
Like if we had some kind of organ or some kind of other like attachment to our face that kind of sense something else, and with that, you're like, whoa, like what would that even be like? I mean but that's what we're experiencing right now. It's just we're limited to.
Think about it, like I've never done any kind of psychedelics before, but like imagine like that's like what about psychedelics allows you to open up this other senses. Realm in your brain. Is that realm there all the time?
Yeah, it's almost like if it's at that point it would be like a switch, like we're able to kind of sense it or kind of understand it in like a sensual. I'm not sure, but
sensual way
in such a way where those chemicals kind of combined it, or I'm not sure. I'm kind of just talking. I don't know really know the technical aspects or the I guess how they interact or with the body, but does that per se turn something on that that is going on right now? Like you said,
it's like a fifth or sixth dimension that we cannot even sense until some chemical or some compound is put into us to unlock that. Because it almost has to be. I mean, like it's a chemical doing something to your brain. Yeah, and your brain is making up those reactions.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, our brain is like this, huge electrical powerhouse, where it's almost like almost like some kind of electrical resonator to this universe or something, and how we perceive everything. So I guess like in a way messing with that and kind of like changing the radio station per se, tuning into something else that's there already.
Yeah.
But
like it's almost like in a weird way, like does deja vu come into that play? Like, or like that moment when you see a ghost or you feel something move past you?
Yeah.
Like, are you
experiencing that?
Like, because your brain's equipped to experience it, but it's not without, some of those key there's the compounds that open it. But like, what about if it's like you said, like the radio station kind of goes in and out, like it tunes back and forth.
Where it's like you're almost, it's almost like a halfway, kind of like understanding some, a little bit of those frequencies, but not fully immersed in you're not fully on the station, or you're not fully tuned in,
and you're just kind of like
halfway,
past you.
That is very interesting.
Yeah,
it's because some of these things, like how can you, because anyone can say, oh, this is a bunch of silly talk, but when you think about it, like how can you even quantify something like that? How can you
even know, man?
If, maybe the person may be crazy or something like that, but these things are there's a lot of these things. Not everyone's crazy, and it's just and perhaps like just the act of like able to think of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like it's so weird because it's our culture too. Like, imagine did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were a kid?
Yeah,
and like how real sometimes those moments were when you had an imaginary friend.
Yeah, wow.
But if you were like 30 years old and you had an imaginary friend, you'd be like locked up.
Yeah, you'd be crazy. Yeah, you'd be like,
But like, I don't know, like being a kid, I feel like sometimes being a kid, I was able to unlock more things in my brain.
Yeah.
And perceive things so much cleaner than at an old age.
It's like
you said, like the way you kind of look back on things. Like, imagine it just hypothetically, like if you had a kid in school that always said, your nose was massive and called you names your whole life, and then then there's time that passes, and every time someone mentions something about your nose, even if it's positive, it just hurts you.
Yeah.
But like if I'm standing right next to you and someone said something about my nose, it would just be like kind of a temporary, fuck you or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like your life experience led you to have a different emotional, like if both of us were experiencing the same insult at the same time.
Yeah.
if you had that past and I didn't, you would perceive that on such a different level than I would.
Yeah. It's like experiences are additive, and everyone has a different experience, so therefore everyone is truly different.
Which makes which goes into the cliche of that's why everybody's different, and that's why the world is so awesome to live in at the time, because everybody's, creative or this or that, and it makes everybody do different things.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I feel, do we all start out programmed the same way?
Yeah.
Or, are there some people out there that just get cut a bad break?
Yeah.
Or they don't just equipped with the same type of things everybody else is?
Yeah. Well, I think to a certain extent, perhaps there's some kind of, if you want to add, I guess, evolution aspect to this, perhaps there's certain, brain developments that are hereditary that are necessary for some kind of, in some kind of evolutionary way, but that's kind of hard to say. I don't know if there's. Because everyone is different, yet similar at every time, Yeah. Yeah, so do we? I don't know.
We all are equipped with the basic same tools, but everybody kind of just uses them differently.
Yeah.
And you go across the country, you go across, the world. Somebody who grew up in Saudi Arabia is going to perceive and act and do things totally different than you would because just of their life experience.
Yeah. Just like having each... because when you think about it, it makes sense. There's like infinite amount of possibilities and things that could happen in the way that you're kind of receiving this information. Thus, it does make sense because, everyone is different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's kind of weird that you said that about as a kid. Like, I'm kind of going back a little bit. It's kind of weird how you said that as a kid. You kind of have these imaginary friends. Perhaps, as you go along in life, these thoughts kind of get clogged up a little bit, thus making it a little bit harder to kind of reach into this other realm. Yeah. But as a kid, you're not, it's not sort of clogged up in the same way. You're kind of free, a little bit more free.
I'm 27.
Yeah.
You want to know when the first time I realized, as a kid, I recognized a big change that I think back on it now and I think it changed my whole life course and the way I perceive things.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was 12 maybe, how old, 11 or 12 when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that moment that the world wasn't so innocent anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about that for a long time until years later, and I realized maybe having that thought at such a young age.
Yeah.
Has made me perceive things and perceive the world much more differently than maybe it is.
Yeah. That
how something that strong can affect your mental the way you perceive things.
Especially as a kid, that kind of
shapes your
wrench
brain
in the whole. You go back to kids that grew up in the 80s, 70s, 60s, there was no sort of tragedy like that in school, and to have something that extreme, you
look back at every generation. Some generation has something that has happened. Everybody's kind of got a weird chip on their shoulder, and you kind of tell what generations they're in almost.
Yeah, yeah. But that was, that it really did. Something is down to that single moment. It's that single moment just changed.
Could change the way you think.
Your life and how you perceived your future.
Yeah.
And how you kind of interfaced with your future.
Yeah, and how you view government and politics and, the world and people around you.
It was a huge...
I remember it being a massive change. At one time, everywhere as you went, there was, safety things. Report a bag if it's been, report a suspicious bag.
And that's still around, too.
Yeah, and it's just I remember the day that changed.
Oh, it changed,
I remember the day it became like that, and it makes you think, we have a generation that's our generation is bred in just fear right now.
Yeah.
And just constant reminder of a threat that could happen.
Yeah.
Every day.
Changed. Yeah.
Now think about it. Granted, there's a lot of things that go on in the world that's shitty all the time.
Yeah.
But most people live in a world, especially in this country, where they get up and they go to work or they go to school, they come home safe. There's just not. Yeah. There's that repetitiveness of just safety, you know. But then you introduce kind of this every single day you're somewhere, as you kind of reminded of like, watch out for people around you, watch out for the bags, watch out for this, and it's kind of like over time it makes people paranoid and it makes people have a little more jadedness to them, and it's just like.
Yeah, a little.
As I feel like, you know, that's definitely happened to me. I've become a more frightened person at times, you know, when you really shouldn't be.
Yeah, or just in general, like, you know, like as a social fear, you know, with large groups of people, you know, like that kind of. I
remember the day that fucking shooting in the movie theater happened years ago, and every single time since I go in this movie theater, I'm like, okay.
Is this
this day? Is this someone? I'm gonna see someone stand up in the middle of the movie, like looking around. Like that's fucked up because I remember just so shortly ago, years ago, I never would have thought about that. Yeah. I would have never thought about someone bringing a gun into a movie theater and killing a whole bunch of people. That's insane.
Especially
and now every time I'm in a movie theater, I'm gonna just in the back of my head reminded about that. It's so weird.
It's like I can't. Well, I mean. Yeah, like something, you know, like just, you know, in these places where, you know, you at least expect, you know, you don't go to a movie theater thinking that. Like, imagine being the people in, you know, in ground zero at that point, like, of the movie theater. Like, what, like, those people who actually experienced that and got away, you know, what did they, you know, were they thinking, like, wow, what a weird coincidence, I'm the movie theater. I'm in the same movie that this kind of national news happened.
How did and people have probably there's probably a whole group of people that were supposed to go to the movies that night and didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and then Rob drank all my water.
Yeah, well, the silence you heard, I think I was used to. I don't know. I got a little bit too comfortable talking and just saw the water bottle. I was just like, I thought it was. But I didn't know who it was. Kind of
I told him that he could have it, and then he put it back down, and then I got confused. I was like, I have it.
I only took a sip, so it was kind of counterproductive to the whole thing. Anyway.
But no, there's a whole bunch of people that I think about that all the time, where I make plans for something, and then something either comes up or it just fades away, and it's like, oh, we don't do it. Oh, let's go to the movies tonight. And then a few hours later, you're like, you know, we'll do something. I'll go out to dinner or something like that. Yeah. I think about all that time. What about, did I just miss something?
Yeah.
Is this me missing something, or is this me going into something?
Yeah.
Just your decisions in general. And it flashback to a kid again. We got into a really bad accident with my mom and my brother on the highway, Atlantic City Highway.
Really?
And I think I've told you the story probably a bunch of times, but I'll tell it for on here. But we're up against the truck pushes us up against a wall, and it bangs up my mom's side and my brother's side, and then we had to pull off the road onto the grass, going 60 miles an hour, and the truck kept going.
Wow.
And the car was totaled. We think everybody was okay, but the moment that tripped me out when I thought back to that moment. You know, at a young age, that night, we were coming from a pet store.
Yeah.
And we had gotten the dog food and what we needed. My mom wanted to get out and go because we had to get home for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And both me and my brother wanted to look at the lizards.
Uh-huh.
And we kept going, yo, Mom, you know, let us, we want to look at the lizard, you know, buy us a lizard. And Mom would go, no, come on. And then she finally, all right, look at the lizards. And we looked at the lizards. And we left. Boom. Just a few seconds. Looked at the lizard and left.
Yeah.
I thought back, if I just would have went with my mom, that truck wouldn't have lined up, but the timing would have been
you would have been
totally
looking at different cars too.
Yeah.
Everything would have been different. Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought okay, what about that moment happening or not happening? Has it changed my life?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then I think most time I'm like, okay, you know, I'm gonna make I get the moment where I'm like, am I gonna make a right or left this light? Because I can go both ways, and I'm like, I'll make a left. No, I'm gonna go right.
Yeah.
Maybe if I went left, you know, I could have got hit by a drunk driver or something crazy, or you know, gotten killed.
Yeah, that is a. I mean, when you think about it, that alone, you know, it's can you really is it even possible to decipher if that is, if this is all kind of just free floating, or like, are we just all free floating consciousness, and we're just, and wherever that leads us is just somewhat random, or is it kind of all somewhat planned according to kind of...
It's amazing the world just continues to go. Yeah. When you really think about, we're just a bunch of ants on this planet. just going at things 100 miles an hour and just hoping that everybody wants to stay on the same road and the same side of the street, and hoping nobody gets out of line and tries to cause a shakeup. Yeah. And we're just like daily kind of just doing that, like trusting. You're driving on the street and you're just hoping that guy is not going to like jerk the wheel over to you. You're just trusting that person.
Yeah, because anyone has the ability to kind of just
and any decision you make in your life, could literally change the rest of your life. Yeah, or the way you perceive the world.
Yeah, I mean it's in a weird way. It's happening every millisecond, every second, every just.
And I think it's weird that like the older I get, more memories fade away from my brain. Yeah. And like they become more, instead of video in my head, they become like stills, like some of the older, like just like me playing or me in a house or somewhere else like that.
Like a complete memory.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, but like the moments like that where the truck happens, and I remember like the day what I was doing that day, what we were doing before, what we were doing after. We got pizza after, we had, my dad had pizza waiting for us or something. Like, I remember that whole moment. So it's like so crystallized in my brain. Yeah. That it's so weird, like why certain memories over the others.
Yeah, I mean,
is it to teach us lessons? Like keep a lesson going in our brain of like,
the more drastic it is, the more kind of we learn and kind of understand how
you put your hand on the oven and it's hot. Yeah. You don't want to put your hand.
Yeah, you remember like, okay, before I actually reached, I remember reaching for the oven.
And I felt the heat coming at me, and it got hotter and hotter, and then boom, I touched it, and it burned the shit out of me, and now I'm not going to do that ever again.
Whereas if we did, we'd be like, oh, every day, let's burn our You're burning your hands. Yeah.
Well, imagine like living all the way until like an old age and not have touched a hot stove before. Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, that kind of, in a way, sums up pretty much a lot of things that we were talking about. Yeah. It's all kind of just this additive thing that's going on. But going back to the crash, or did that truck it didn't stop? It going. Never knew it probably hit you.
We were on the far left lane, and the wall was next to us, and the truck was in the lane next to us. And he never came over, and it hit us up against the wall. Yeah. And it kept it kind of pushed us up because he was just getting into our lane.
Yeah. Was it nighttime?
No, it was the middle of the day.
And he never stopped?
Never stopped. Just we watched him just disappear down AC Highway.
Jeez. Well, but you also got to think, too, perhaps...
It's insane, I wonder if that guy ever found out, would it affect him or would it not? Yeah. Like, this guy lives his life not knowing that he almost killed a family.
And I wonder if in a weird way... Well, what was I going to... In a weird way, I wonder... if that guy in some weird way, also is playing another role later in your life. What if there's some kind of weird, the higher the kind of remembrance, does that kind of hold some kind of, energy where then, kind of comes back in some kind of wave?
It's almost like
without
a weird
you knowing it, because you never knew that guy.
Have you ever been in a store and you're like, I know this person?
Yeah.
Wow. I know this person. and you have no clue who this person is.
And that could be your subconscious saying, because you remember those details of that day happening. Perhaps that
it's almost like
you remember.
Have you ever gotten vibes I have strong vibes from people when I get into a room. Yeah. It's usually not I have to say that it's usually not vibes unless something's bad. Yeah. I'll go weeks or months, and then all of a sudden walk in the store and I'm like, ooh. Yeah. All of a sudden my senses are out. Yeah.
It's kind of like the life of the party, that one person kind of bringing energy to the rest of the people. It's effective in the close.
That's weird because I was listening to something where they were saying how literally how you when you experience trauma. Yeah. And you say somebody passed away and you can feel the hurt inside of you. Yeah. Well, they're saying they can actually measure that pain. Wow. Like how they can measure the body getting hurt or broken, like damaged. Yeah. Like they can actually physically measure emotional pain, and that emotional pain actually affects the body. Yeah. And not only that, but like we also give out these vibes. Like they can actually measure vibes coming off of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean,
and they can actually pinpoint, like this guy like pinpointed like what's the point, I forget where it was at, but like where on earth are the most positive vibes to be at.
Wow.
Like, and obviously, like, rich areas and then poor areas are going to have... Everybody living and being in that one area are going to have a certain vibe going on collectively.
It's like we almost, like, expel this, like, frequency that affects others because, like, we're kind of like... I don't know, I always kind of see it as like, an antenna, you know?
Yeah,
brain,
or, like...
But, like, it's to make sense, you know?
And if you think about, like... Think about a person, like, I've worked at jobs, but, like, it will, like, magnify it a little bit. Like, a person that works in an office for, like, 10 years. Yeah. And everybody, like, there's 30 people in that office, and they've all been there for 10 years, and they fucking hate their job. Yeah. They're in cubicles, and they're staring at screens. Yeah. And then they're just, everybody's just like, fuck, I hate my fucking life right now. Like, I'm stuck in a cubicle, staring at a screen every day, punching numbers, and everybody's got this collective vibe. Like, think about, like, going on vacation. Yeah. And have you ever walked into a place and immediately just felt like shit? Like, I fucking hate being here. Yeah. Like, everybody's vibes are just
off.
Like, I wonder if that feeling... It's not only just mental, but it's like you're walking into a field of just negative vibes.
It's almost like you kind of like as a magnet walks into another magnet, either repels or attracts. Yeah. And in a weird way, that kind of has the same phenomenon. Like you said, there's a sign. You know, there's been ways.
Yeah, we talked about two different things. Yeah, the first part I was talking about was how they can actually measure physical.
Well, yeah,
like your thoughts, your physical, like your mental agony as a measurement.
Well, yeah, like, and that kind of expresses outwardly too. Yeah. Like this is kind of the same way. Where, same I mean, slightly skewed a little bit with the topic, but generally, like you said, you walk into a room and. You know, you either resonate with those frequencies or kind of just like you get this vibe. You know, you don't know what it is. Just
and it sucks to be that person that has to just suck it up and be there.
Yeah,
You know, and what does that do to a person's life and emotional output? Like, again, going back to perception and still kind of on this topic, it's like things are all how you perceive it. They're actually being able to say that, you know, like, you know, say getting fired from your job is sucky.
Yeah.
But like imagine having the perception of the guy coming up to you, your boss coming up to you and be like, all right, you're fired, get out of here, and you're just like, thank God. Like like woo, like and you just celebrate in your brain. And it just doesn't affect, you know, most people would like harp on it and become depressed and drag themselves down. But it's really just, at the end of the day, like, you could get fired from your job, and technically, if you had the power over your brain to just enjoy that moment. Instead of physically have a man inside of your head beating the shit out of your brain. Yeah. That's what you're doing, going, oh, I'm a piece of shit, oh, fucking, you know, I hate myself, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, your brain is not, we get into that moment where we think our brains do that automatically. Yeah. But really, we should have control over our brain, and we should make those choices not to do that to ourselves. Yeah. It's almost just as good. It's just, we might as well just be physically hitting ourselves and punching the shit out of ourselves and beating ourselves up because the emotional pain you're putting yourself through actually puts an effect on your body.
Yeah, so it's literally, like you're saying, it's linked. It's linked. So like
they can actually say like there's some causes of cancer and some like because they studied like I watched this documentary on this guy that studied all these like apes and stuff and how they build societies like we do. Like, you know, there's the little, you know, the peons and then the bosses and the leaders and stuff like that. And going back to kind of like our, you know, roots, the way we're designed, when we have fear, when we fear something, it was like back in the day, like when we would see a lion and your body is put in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And there's a chemical that releases in your body that creates that fear, that moment, and it gets you out of there safely. Yeah. They're saying now that like we live in these modern societies that your bills being late automatically just has this
triggers
fear,
that same...
and the toilet clogging up is fear, and getting late to work, it triggers another fear, and it's just your body is not designed to take this constant chemical releasing in your body of fear and so stress.
You get this flight or flight and not sure where to even go because it's kind of all just...
And they say like having intense stress and anxiety, is leading to cancer and some problems with like physical problems with the body because your body's not designed to have that chemical constantly shooting through it.
Yeah. Because it's
designed as an emergency backup to get you
in a physical sense.
The move, in a physical sense.
And this is we're kind of it's like almost like simulating that getting chased by a cheetah kind of thing, but but it kind of just alarms the same chemical response.
Yeah, but the bills are due.
Yeah, but the
the government wants you to pay the taxes.
Yeah,
and now you're getting fucking cancer over because you're just stressing every single year about
it's like those
owing more money or doing this for work or whatever. There's people out there that have been able to take control over their brains and manage that better than other people.
Yeah.
And I feel like they end up being healthier.
Yeah.
And that's something that I should learn more too, I feel like, honestly.
And that's the hard part because
your autopilot. It's wrapping around the big circle what we talked about in the beginning. It's like autopilot.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, it's hard. Like you're saying how, some people can deal with certain emotional triggers in their brain better.
Yeah.
And if you go to them and say, hey, how do you do it? And they'll tell you something, but perhaps that's not the key to how you would, how you would fix that in your own mind,
Yeah.
So therefore, I guess I get that it's like it's frustrating because it's, that's, because it's like
sometimes
I guess only
you notice it and sometimes you don't. Like, and a lot of times in those major moments you can find yourself caught up.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's your thought on like depression?
Well, I mean,
I think we both have struggled from it from time to time.
Yeah,
probably.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I think depression is a wide spectrum. You can be depressed in different ways, in different kind of like emotional ways. Like I noticed, like I know the difference. Like it's weird because like I've been depressed. Numerous times over numerous situations, but it's weird, like depression over, kind of like someone, not having someone around anymore, or, that feeling of going to school for the first time, that worriedness, and then that afterwards depression. Like I noticed that, like anxiety is totally different than depression, but they're somehow linked, per se.
One feeds into the other.
Yeah, it's weird.
But have you ever felt like? Have you ever known that you were letting yourself slip into a depression and been okay with it?
Yeah, and feel
What about our brain is wired that way?
Yeah,
it's so weird. Like we allow ourselves to go through emotional agony. Yeah. Sometimes, most of the times.
And like, why does that?
And we allow it to happen, and we get to certain places when we can fix it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't. And sometimes people get in this big circle, and I've been there where depending on sometimes, months in a circle of just like, you just have this feeling. And it's weird that they can measure it now because when you're so into, if you've ever been in there, like a moment like that, you would know what I'm feeling like, but it literally feels like something inside of you dragging you down.
Yeah, and you feel physically affected. Like you all of a sudden do not have any kind of ambition. Like it's like you kind of like, that ambition is some sort of energy that gets either taken over or swept away, and you can feel it.
What I've been really trying to, I think, help me a lot. What I've been trying to do is just like being like, okay, this is the moment I'm in now. Like, stop worrying about this. I'm standing in Walgreens in line buying a candy bar,
and it's so.
This is what I'm doing right now.
And that's kind of like you trying to reprogram back that.
Yeah, you got to reset.
But it's so hard to kind of. It's so
difficult.
It's a lot more difficult to get out of a depression than to put yourself in one, because it's so easy to just slip in.
Because it almost feels like, in a weird way, like it's, I guess, could be like said as a drug, because I feel like in my experiences, like letting yourself slip into depression has sometimes been most satisfying. Yeah. In a weird way, like knowing yourself, like the moments that you know you're going to go from happy to being depressed. Yeah. I think I've looked back and think like I've been okay with that for different reasons, I guess, but like you're okay with that, and it's like feels good that you're okay with that, and then just let it go. Yeah. It's like, but then moments later you're into it. Yeah. And you can't get out.
It's like your body's aligned with the only thing that it feel like it can accomplish, right? Knowing that it's just, even though it's a negative thing, and knowing that it's accomplishing that negative thing. Yeah. And that's sort of adding to like a positive aspect, but it's negative because it's almost in a reverse aspect. But it's like, weird. I know there was a saying like there's like a comfort in being sad sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like kind of the same feel. That's the same thing I think I'm talking about. Yeah.
And it's a weird
concept.
I
think the more people, it's tough because you want to comfort that person that's sad. Yeah. But at what point, are you allowing them to be sad and to know that, they're allowing themselves to be sad? Yeah. But the reason they're allowing themselves to get sad is because they're getting some kind of attention or something like that. And it becomes like a drug. Like, okay, people pay attention to me when
they make them feel better. Yeah. 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 Or instead of like them really taking the situation in their own hand to understand why they're sad. Yeah. And so they're just stuck instead of trying, going back and having to experience pain again to then fix it, because there's always a certain, I don't know, I feel like in a way, like, with depression too, there's always, when trying to fix it or trying to really understand why you're sad, there's always a certain there's always going to be this pain bringing you back to like a better point, because then once you understand why you were sad and understand why you're depressed to a certain extent, because it's still complex.
I'm a true believer. I don't know about you, if you've ever thought about it. I'm a big believer in you got to experience the darkness before the light.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean,
some people that only experience the light, you can pick them out in a crowd. Like,
oh, yeah. I mean,
like that person doesn't have he's growing up with no problems or no money issue, and then they're just such a different person.
Yeah. It's kind of like looking at a picture that's completely either, like you can't have a picture that's all just dark, or you can't have a picture that's all light, because it's less interesting. The more dynamic between the dark and the light, it brings out the true beauty in a lot of things, and that's to say about someone's personality too. Yeah, with what they've experienced, it kind of shows their personality in a dynamic way. Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. It's really interesting because it's
this conversation got out of control, I don't even remember what the hell we started with. Consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it's all linked. Yeah, it's all linked. It's all kind of what we're.
It's full circle.
What we're experiencing, what the interface and of what life is. It's crazy.
So yeah, I mean
well.
Do you have any more thoughts on that?
There's so much to be said about consciousness. No, just having just one conversation.
It hurts. It hurts to even think about the complexity of consciousness sometimes.
Well, yeah, because it's everything that we've ever known. Yeah. Our whole lives, and it's just everything that we.
And it's the only
are
thing.
To be alive.
It's the only thing we know.
Yeah, and it's literally. I don't think we talk. I think there needs to be more conversations on people understanding their own consciousness, because
I feel like it's something you're
it's
really
not a
taught.
Big topic. It's always it's always kind of
you're taught how to drive.
Yeah, it's always kind of like one of those subjects of what do you there's crazy ideas. Why would you that's you're kind of talking a little bit crazy. You get back to the real world, but it is the real world. It's what you're experiencing constantly.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah,
it's weird because I think we know more about the fucking sun than we do about what goes on in our own little brains.
Yeah, it's
crazy. like, to think that.
I think there needs to be some more fundamental, we need to understand what the fundamental aspects of what we are. And we tend to just, it's not really looked upon. It's not really kind of budgeted upon on any kind of, or at least as far as I know, as far as I think, at least society goes.
I can never perceive the world like my dog does. I will never know how that little dog knows what the world is like. Yeah. Because you're not in his head. Yeah. And nobody's that's ever been a human has ever been a dog. It's like weird because it's like, put that in perspective when you're thinking about our own brains. Yeah. What are we missing and lacking and stuff like that? Yeah.
It's so weird because in a way, we're kind of stuck in between these two infinities, and perhaps other people, I don't know. It's kind of weird in how that works. Yeah. There's, not everything, I don't think, there's a fine line between, being able to quantify something or measure it, and then, you go talk about consciousness where there's limitless possibilities, limitless things.
There's really not been many discoveries on consciousness. Yeah. It's crazy, and we live it and see it and feel it every day. Yeah. Well, we'd have no way to get away from it, and we have no way to even get more into it. Yeah. It's like it's programmed, and we're just this computer that runs the way it's programmed.
Yeah. And we still haven't really yet to begin to understand why, or we haven't been asking or teaching the right questions. Yeah. So I think it's very important to kind of bring up consciousness. So, I mean, honestly, I kind of lost track. I don't even know how long we've been talking for. It's been a long time. But it's been definitely in-depth conversation.
Yeah. And if anybody who's out there listening to us, if there's anybody out there listening to this, if you enjoyed this conversation, definitely swing by and see us again.
Yeah, definitely. But there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of topics. Weird topic. This is the weirdness. We're talking about topics that, where we can kind of try to understand and kind of merge these things, these weird thoughts that kind of really don't get brought up every day. So.
Just like take these little ideas like they're little pieces of clay and just see what it goes made out of.
It's really all about having fun with it.
I had a blast talking to you right now. I lost track of time and everything.
For all I know, it could. I don't want to give out any numbers, but I'd like to see what the time code says when I get done.
Awesome. Well, if you guys liked hanging out with us, don't forget to like us on Twitter at the Weirdness Pod. Drop us any comments or anything like that, and definitely stay tuned for our next episode. Again, my name's Brian Target, and
my name is Robert Biddle.
And don't forget to leave the world more weird than you found it.